Okay, here's the problem, right? Okay. Here's the problem, right? Before aim trainers and shit, right? The skill ceiling for the average player would go like this, right? Where they would be bad most of the time, but the second that they meet people that teach them like certain tricks about the game, they start learning like the little things. Like this is where like the quote unquote aimers if a good example is like if you learned how to play Quake, right? You'd be mostly bad at like LG or like you'd be bad at shooting guns. So you'd be mostly learning like the map stuff, right? Which is pretty good, but it's not helping like a lot of things. But then the second that people teach you like the small intricate things, like okay, here you can learn how to LG duel with me, bro. Like why don't we just do this every day? And then like it's like, oh, dude, you want to know something? You have like a little problem when you duel. You constantly like stay in the same position. Like as soon as people start like figuring out their mistakes, that's when they start improving. But here's what it's like now. All right, here's what it's like now. What happens is because of their aim, right? They start learning how to aim, so they get like a very good advantage. But then, actually, no, this is pretty bad. There. This is a little bit better. So they start aiming, right? So they start learning how to aim train now in order to get the better advantage because they think, okay, if I start learning how to do this, I'm going to become a pro esport player immediately. So they get to the point where it's like, okay, their aim is starting to get better, right? And then they start forgetting how to do like the game sense portions because they're so focused on game sense only. So instead of doing it where they learn everything else first and then they go into like the tiny intricate details, they do it the opposite way. And this is what's causing like it's actually a lot more lower probably.
So
I think it's
aim and intricate details. Are you trying to tell me?
yeah, aim is like the thing that you should learn last. If I'm playing a game like CS, I'm thinking you should learn first how to like know like the map positions, how to do smokes, right? You should learn that first before you just have to learn like game sense. And then when you get into areas where because this is also the same issue, right? Like you can kind of see this where it's like a lot of players in CS:GO, like when they're silver, they just instantly like go to the top because they can just out aim them. If that's mostly the case,
Yeah, and
then
this is
they're
like wait,
stuck.
the,
Yeah.
the the graph is like your advantage of other players, right?
Well, no, this is just like your skill over time. I'm thinking.
Okay,
It's like
okay.
the graph is like mostly like okay. It's like what happens is that a lot of players, right? What happened back in the days is as long as you knew how to shoot, right, you'd get like a higher advantage over silvers. Then you'd just be stuck at this peak for quite a while. Quite honestly, to be honest,
Until you
because
figure out like the game, right?
yeah, because a lot of these aimers would just get stuck here because they don't have to like they don't learn like the certain things and positions and callouts. Then they would reach like they would as soon as they realize the little thing, they start getting the advantage, and then it's like it's mostly it's not like a thing where they just learn immediately. Like hold on, CS and then fine.
I'm recording this anyway, so I can look at it later.
CS, and then it's like, what is this shit? What did I forgot? Okay,
It was Quake, right? That was like before you knew how to shot properly, and then you learn how to shot properly.
Quake, and then I think this is like, let's just say this was like, let's just say this is Valorant because I think this is a good example. Because I think now in Valorant we're reaching that point where what happens is a lot of the people that are bad and like around bronze to gold that they think that okay I'm gonna learn how to do this, right? I'm gonna learn how to do that, and they learn how to aim, right? So that way they can just like fucking peek whenever they want to because it's not like a lot of the people don't understand how like the abilities work. But then the second that they reach players that do know how to use abilities and have good strat calls, they reach this thing where it's like, God, I think it's my aim, and they constantly practice their aim until they meet people that tell them like, okay, I know you main this character, so here's this little trick you learn. So that's where you get the same end goal graph. You know what I mean?
Okay, so like I remember I was watching like Pure G Loki stream, and this guy was like DMing during a lot of Kovacs, and someone else in the VC suggested that he should focus more on like the macro rather than the micro, because I feel like the issue with video games and FPS is that when you're in a fight, that's where you see your mistakes, versus like when you're outside of the fight. Like when I'm rotating in CPMA, because of how it is, it makes me think about that. But when you're rotating to a site in CS, you don't necessarily think about how you could be doing it better, right? Because
Well, yes,
you don't
because
get
you're just
punished.
you're thinking about like, because in that time while you're playing, what happens is that you're just thinking about strats that your teammates can do. You might be like, okay, well, I think the enemy's not going to do this, but you're not going to be thinking about that a lot when you're at like a lower level, right? You're mostly going to be thinking about, okay, what is the strat we're going to do? You're usually going to have like one person if you're playing with a good like team setup, right? You're going to not be thinking about the enemy team a lot. That's one of the craziest things. You're just going to be thinking about setups and positions. You're just going to ingrain mentally into your mind that over
And
time.
the fights are like the
Yeah,
least important part of that,
yeah. The
right?
fights, because mostly, unless you're playing like here's the thing. Also with CS, right, is that the reason why some of these people like just instantly get here is because they learn how to counter the op. And what I mean is that you know how like peeking in CS, you can jiggle peek an op, or like you can just quick like you can learn how to outplay like mentally certain players. This is the equivalent like in CPMA, where if I know how to like spawn trap you consistently, right? I can instantly become such a good player because I know where you are at all times, and I can essentially stop you from being able to play the game at all.
It's just
So I'm just going to
countering
keep
an
on doing that.
obstacle, right?
Yeah. So you just literally stop the obstacle that's in your way. Because a lot of like bad CS, what happens is that a lot of the players just don't know how to counter the ops. So that's what happens.
Hmm.
And obviously, like it's not just bad players, because there's a lot of good players where like if you play op, you just know like how people are gonna peak. So you just practice like the click time, and you go wow wow. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like it's like a very important issue.
But I think the
Uh,
worst part about it is that like gunfights expose your mistakes, right? First of
yeah.
all, then that's the
However,
only way to really expose your mistakes without looking deeper into it.
yeah, but
But
however,
yeah,
here's the thing. Okay, yeah, okay. Here's the thing. Let's get this out of the way. Actually, no, we can just copy paste this. Wait, no, actually, no, that's not good.
I recorded
Just
it, so I have like the screenshots and stuff, you know.
yeah, no, I got you. I'm just gonna copy, paste. And I'm just gonna do that. Okay, so here's the thing. All right, what's happening with a lot of these aim games is that the skill, right?
Like aim games is stuff that actually like
Yeah,
Apex,
a lot
Fortnite.
of the developers in these games, right? They notice that most of these players are constantly getting around this around this area, right? Wait, whoops. What's this? Oops. Okay, yeah, no, okay. Is that they're getting around this area.
And they
So
just
like
stop.
wait, yeah, okay. What happens is a lot of devs are noticing that these players are in this situation, and it's causing a lot of the lower half to want to quit the game. Because these guys get instantly such a higher advantage compared to the others. This is like in COD, right, with SBMM. What's happening is that instead of playing the game where it's like a lot of the seasoned players are just gonna like they're gonna be destroyed for a bit, right? But then they start looking at how the enemy players start learning, right? And then they get to this top. But because they're still playing, they still have like a higher advantage over like these players. So they're not like these where they're still getting off guarded by these players, and like so they understand how to play the game. What's happening is that because okay, hold on, I'm trying to make sense of this. What happens is that the devs realize, okay, this is getting a serious problem. Now a lot of players are at this area. No, wait, whoops. Hold on. A lot of players at this area instead of this area, where they're not just going to be bad for like a while and they're just going to enjoy the game. They're going to be constantly stomped by people in this area. So how do we fix this?
So
And
they're stomping people and getting stomped at the same time.
Yeah, because like notice how a lot of like players that play CPMA, right? Like a lot of people quit instantly is because they're at this point in stage where there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of mediocre players. I mean, too. It's like I've met there's a person that wanted to play CPM with me, right? And he was really new. Like he's not that good at like FPS games. And I was like, I'm not gonna duel you because I feel like it's gonna be way too devastating. I'm gonna let my friend duel, right? And what happened was he got like 20. He got like negative 520, right?
Mm.
And that caused him to quit because he thought that he would not be able to keep up with this guy, even though this guy only practiced for like 2 to 3 months, whereas this guy has no experience, right? It's all about the dopamine rush. It's all about this I didn't get to say at all. But the problem is that a lot of these players that are getting into Kovacs, they're getting addicted. This is the equivalent of like the gain addiction that people that are into weightlifting get, right? They're like, oh my god. It's like they start learning how to lift, right? They're gaining gains pretty quickly because they have the good mindset. They're starting off really well, right? But they reach a plateau. They reach a terrible plateau where they're like, dude, I can't do this anymore. And what happens is, because it's like real life lifting, a lot of these people will start doing drugs, etc., in order to get good. Whereas in like aiming like problems is that they just keep on they
Brute force it.
they brute force practice it until they only do like mechanical playing, and that if they don't use their brain at all. So that's why players like Scrubble exist. He's just that mechanically talented that he doesn't need to. He'll literally play like non-meta guns because if he's at a disadvantage, he's like, okay, well, let me just change it up so I can just be better mechanically, right? Because if you saw him play CS, he was playing in a scrim match, right? But he was already like a 0-5 like he was going 0-5 for like the team. So he switched to the AUG, and then he started like catching up. Which, of course, even though it's like a scrim, so like a lot of these players aren't playing seriously, you can tell that he's only changing his game sense based off of how he needs to play mechanically. Does that make sense?
So he's like, oh, okay, I get what you mean. So it's being ready for everything versus changing how you're ready for certain things, right? Because if they try something different, then you wouldn't be
instead of changing your play style, he's staying with the same play style. He's just slightly altering it so that way he can get a short advantage on the teammates.
So, but there's no. He just relies on himself to adapt, basically.
Yeah, he knows like basic nade spots and he'll know like basic things, but he's just relying on aim, if that makes sense.
He's like, I don't know. Aim is so overpowered compared to everything else, right?
Well,
if you have
not
amazing positioning, you can't hit a shot.
In certain games, yes, you can just completely out aim people, yeah, and that's like the problem. But also, here's the issue. There's people that have who've been practicing. Okay, this is gonna need another graph. Okay, like this is the same dilemma with like CS players that just learn how to how to learn how to FFA, right? Yeah. They reach the same like thing, but it's actually not like this, right? It's more like this. They only learn how to aim. They play DM only, right? So this is just DM only. They know how people will react in like certain situations, and that of course people are gonna memorize all the spots to flick to, right? So like in Mirage, if you're playing mid, right? He'll like players like that play DM only, right? That like play the good DM servers. I don't mean like the CS like the regular CS ones that Valve gives.
Yeah, like headshot.
As long as yeah. If they learn how to play headshot deathmatch, then they're just gonna know how to click heads, and that they'll adapt themselves to master the map instead of playing for team. They only play for themselves.
But what if they have like a really really good IGL that just played StarCraft with them?
Yeah. Like a really good. Yeah, that's the thing. Like a lot of like it's not okay. Like really good IGL. This isn't even just like related to CS:GO. I've seen people in Apex where they have really good players like Asu, right? TSM had NRG had Asu, right? And they had a really good they had good mechanical players, right? But the reason why they weren't scoring well in tournaments or they weren't placing well was because they didn't have somebody who had brains in order to carry the game sense. Does that make sense?
Carry the mechanics, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
mechanics.
So
Well,
there has to be a balance between knowing what to do and doing that, right?
yeah. You can't have it where it's like you have like
Wait, does this pick up my mic? Yeah, it does. I
you,
can hear my
you can't have aim. You can't just have aim overpower your game sense, right?
But the thing is that if somebody like, it's like if someone in when like your friend, I forget what his name was, when he like just dropped on me
J J
randomly.
J J.
Jay. Okay, he just
Yeah.
dropped on me randomly, and I like flick rocketed him, right? I wasn't prepared for him to do that, but
Oh no, that's not J. No. You mean Summon VG? Summon
yeah,
VG. Yeah.
Simon, yeah. So when he was like I just flick rocketed him, right? And my aim carried me in that situation, right? But technically,
Yeah.
even though it's a technicality, right?
Yeah.
You can get good enough aim where in any situation your brain is so used to doing what it's doing that you don't need to think about being nervous, right? It's probably not worth the amount of hours you have to put into it, but like
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is a good example. You know Scream, right?
yeah,
Scream, right? Oh shit.
Scream, David.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Such like
I know.
okay.
Like obviously Scream, right? He literally became a
Scream's
pro
so good.
CS Source player because he only played headshot deathmatch only, right? And by the time that he got into CS:GO, everybody knew him because he was so good at aiming. But here's the problem. He only played he only played deathmatch, and he probably did like a few other things. I'm not sure what it was. But what happened was because he only played deathmatch, he forgot to practice game sense. He literally did not know smokes or mollies. He was forced to just rely on his aim. And as soon as the enemy team would realize, okay, he's not doing that great when it comes to like positioning himself sometimes, he'll only position himself so he gets the better aim advantage rather than he positions himself so he doesn't have to get mollied or like he doesn't have to get like
What about
rushed on by
do you know
five
anything
people.
about like how good this team play was?
His team play, he would what he would do is like I think from like whenever he'd play like T side, right? And like
Yeah.
pistol rounds, he'd be really aggressive, right? He was like one of the most aggressive people until like one other guy came along. Like he would be pretty good at that, right?
He's talking about
But the second that yeah, but the second that he get to mid game, right? He like when people would start using ops, right? Or they would start taking like positions where they'd expect like players like him to rush in and like just out aim, he would just instantly get beamed in professional play. And what happened was because of this, he had to switch. He had to switch teams like 4 times. He had to switch teams 4 times because a lot of the people did not even know like what he was gonna like which team setup would be good for him. Because obviously, I don't know if there's a video on this, but like it showed like he was practicing like mollies in like CS and like Inferno, and he knew nothing. And this would be like the type of knowledge you'd learn like 200 hours in, like 300 hours in, if you're playing like regular CS, right? Like
yeah.
this is the type of thing you'd learn like barely in
So
competitive.
this man's aim carried him to the highest level of CS, right?
Yes, yes, but what happened was he was bad in professional play because people knew that and they would just abuse that constantly.
Right, because if you're getting peaked by 3 people, your
Yeah,
AK can't shoot that fast.
yeah.
Okay. Starting to make sense.
Well, it's not just 3 peaks. It's just that he would only do well in situations where essentially he knew that he would have the advantage, right? So he played it like if it were like a game of Apex where he would constantly reposition. Like there's like moments of him where he 1v5s, right? But that's only because of the fact that he had to force himself to like constantly play for like aim only, and like he wouldn't do things like, okay, I should go get the bomb. No, he would just play like it's TDM. He'd just go try and kill everybody as fast as he could.
It's like have you ever played a Kronka pickup game?
Yeah.
It's like that, right? Where you
Yeah.
can stay on point and you can make people run into your crosshair when you're holding sniper, or
But
you
he
can
would just
rush into
rather
them.
just jump around. He could just jump around fake and just he would do that,
Mm.
even though he didn't trade. So what happened was he knew that it was not going well for him, so that's why he switched over to Valorant. And even there, you'll notice that in Valorant, right? Obviously now he's getting like to the point, but like obviously you can see early on, right? This is early on. His aim carried him. But then now, look at this point. He only came back to first as soon as like this happened. As soon as I don't know what this was. I guess these were yeah. Well, as you can see, right? As soon as people like he got carried by his aim. He probably was like a Reyna main. Oh no, he was a Jet main. But then the second that everybody else started practicing only like character only specific things, like I don't know how to say it. Like as soon as people started getting good at Phoenix, or as soon as people started getting good at like
the skills you get that you practice.
Yeah, the game sense.
Right?
Yeah, the game sense. Yeah.
As soon as people learn Valorant.
Yeah, as soon as people actually learned how to play the game, he started losing. Well, he started not doing well, and I guess now he kind of got back. But even then, now they did fourth, which obviously that's pretty good, regardless. Yeah, you get what I mean, right?
Well, I think like I don't think this is like specifically Scream, but it's more that you've gave me this point that you can be really really gifted mechanically, but if you can't use it, or if you choose not to use it, or if you don't know how to use it, it's useless.
Yeah, at a specific level, yes, it can become useless. Like here's the thing, right? Let's go to Neo Ninja, right? There's a reason why this guy can just instantly do well, right? And like
from Battlefield 3, right?
in BF4, yeah. There's a reason why he can just do well. This one was cheated. Let's just go to the one that like actually is real, right?
Is any of them real? Damn.
No, he used to genuinely play. He first started playing on controller, but then he switched. Like this was genuinely real. Like obviously, the only reason why is he just goes into like what he does is he does the equivalent of like he looks at like the enemies where the positions are, and then he just shoots. Whereas you can see in this video, like he's clearly just cheating. Hold on.
Right, as in like there's no way he can.
Yes, this part. This is the classic. The guy just spawns in. This thing makes me laugh so much. Instant teleport. Instant. Hold on. Can I get that playback? Okay, we're gonna do frame by frame. Actually, hold on. One, two, three. This guy only had like 100 milliseconds of reaction time. And you can see that it's like clearly it. Oh wait, this portion. Shit. This wrong. I got it wrong. Whoops.
Okay, video. If that's FPS, maybe.
Yeah, one frame. That's all it was.
But like, I don't know. The other one can be interpreted as legit, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Like the one before, yes, because that was when he just started playing. So like, the thing is with Battlefield, there is no game sense, in my opinion. There's no like genuine game sense where it's like, okay, the only game sense you have is okay. If I learn how to like target switch players in like specific areas, it's close to being aim only. You know what I mean?
Have you tried Battlefield?
Yeah. Like I played BF4.
But for me, like I played Battlefield Domination, right? I think it's more you learn the maps to a point where if they're here, you go there, right? It's like
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. It's more of like, okay, I learned how people in like these certain maps like they position themselves, so I can just like shoot them quickly. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Yeah. Because like it's the same thing if I go to like a good Phantom Forces player. It's the same thing. This guy's too great. I gotta show this again. Like you'll see that this is a really good example because there's this one map in Phantom Forces where essentially Metro. Just as soon as you know how to spawn kill players, you win. You just win the advantage. Yeah, I will. Like he's not doing it here. He's just playing the game normally. This is like what I call a good player.
This is when you get to the escalators, right? And you just
yeah. When you get to the escalators, it's over. It's literally over for the team. Because I can just learn how like certain players are gonna move. But it's like the thing is, it's so minimal, right? You can learn how to aim for people that are like you can learn how to aim for people that are like dolphin jumping or people that are slide canceling, but it's not that it's so insignificant in the scheme of things that it just doesn't change anything. Because I can just use a gun. Because if you didn't know, this gun, the Executioner, is the only one-shot headshot pistol, besides the Deagle. But even then, the Deagle, the XIX one. There's two different ones. There's like one that's like gray and the other one is white. The white one shots as well.
Mm.
Yeah. It's like you'll see that here he doesn't really do serious aiming, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
He'll-
as in like he's just positioned so well.
Yeah.
That
He's
he
just
doesn't
like
have
okay.
to like flick to anything really.
Yeah, he'll just like put himself where he knows where the enemies will spawn constantly.
So I think I have like a guy who's good for what he means. Such like ARRG. He's an Overwatch player.
Yeah. ARRG.
And like E, yeah,
E.
and then yeah, like his Hanzo.
Which one?
Just I think probably his most popular video.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, that one.
Perfect aim in Overwatch. It's funny. I have a copy of Overwatch Origins Edition, like the PC one, like unopened, like actual box. My brother bought,
Damn.
and I've never opened it. It's still in the same condition. Like, yeah.
You know, like he can still hit really nice flicks, but he doesn't like push the speed of them or anything, right? And he doesn't have to play out of panic ever, which is something aimers do a little too often. I think even I play out of like being in a panic situation where the only thing I can do is like snap onto them, and like you see how you like deal with that mercy and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's a really good video anyway.
To be honest, I'm gonna be honest. I actually do need these sub captions.
I can't.
He sounds too French.
He's so
no.
like
Yeah, but notice he has 5K hours, right?
Yeah, but that's what happens after experience, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's something
So,
that okay. So yeah, I kind of understand what you mean more now. Aiming isn't something you can. Aiming and mouse control are different things, and you can't shortcut aiming through Kovacs.
Yeah, it's like, here's the thing. This is like a really good example. This is actually more of an art example, but like, the thing is like, you can have a person like me, right, who just does not do anything here's the thing. I only do things like, I only practice like shit like anatomy, and what that is, right? You'll see that there's like a bunch of fucking. We're not gonna look at all the naked people. But like, notice how I only look at the shapes. This is like one of the things, if you actually learn how to draw, it's like, you can analyze a picture only with shapes, right? And how you can essentially learn how a human body looks just by like essentially breaking it down into like constructs. I think this is like closer to the equivalent of like aiming, because you're trying to learn how to construct the human body as fast as you can. I just wanted to show that. So whereas if you are learning how to do like proper anatomy, where you just like you look at you look at like pictures of the human body, and you trace them, you draw them in certain scenarios, and you just spend time with experience, right? You spend like maybe like 10,000 hours, and then that's when you get to like drawing like perfect looking like bodies of humans. You know what I mean? Like that's how like a lot of artists, like older artists, like I think people like right before we got to the like internet boom age, like that's how a lot of people like drew. But because of the fact that now we just have all of this art, all of this anime now as well, we can just like analyze how like they construct, like how do they draw the bodies and stuff, and then we just copy that, and that's how you do it. That's kind of how it is when it comes to like aiming as well. You'll just have players, right, that watch players like Christmas is Cancelled, right? How to like play like a certain map. I don't know if you know this guy.
Yeah, I know Christmas.
Yeah.
He's actually one of the best streamers I watch play.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna see a lot of people who just I used to watch this guy a lot as well when I first started off because it's like, oh, this is pretty good. He started off as well. He was
Apex.
he
Pro,
just yeah he just got to he was like platinum to diamond, right? And then he started learning how to like aim practice, and like you could watch his gameplay and like which one was it? It's like you notice how it's like, okay, what he does is he slows down before he like hits the target,
Bro,
even
I
though he's like
saw
a
you
little.
ducking a mouse, and I thought it was his crosshair. I was so confused.
Yeah, no, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
And then it's like you notice, it's like you learn some of these things. It's like, okay, this guy does this. I'm gonna try and incorporate it, and that's how you start learning. You know?
Okay, I think,
And
but the thing is that there is some stuff that you can't like forget about, right?
well, yeah,
Like Voltaic, right? For every one of their routines, they have like a guide on how to do each and every single scenario. So
yeah.
micro correct here. You should try to be smooth. You should never try and predict your target, stuff like that, right?
And here's the thing: I never was like into Voltaic. I only was like an RA and shit. And I never like I actually did follow like the Voltaic like benchmarks and got to Grandmaster without even like looking at any of that stuff. Right? I just posed like, okay, here, and I just stopped. You know what I mean?
Do you get GM complete?
No, I didn't get. Wait, actually, hold on. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like. I think they required back then, like at least 4 or 5 of the scenarios you had to get Grandmaster on in order to get it. I'm not sure if it was like.
Is it Sparky or like?
Oh no, Sparky. Yeah, Sparky,
Okay,
not
okay,
Voltaic.
makes sense, makes sense.
This was
I
this
don't
was
know
Sparky.
much about Sparky since I wasn't like I wasn't.
I think they're the same thing. I think they just changed the name.
It's a rebrand, but everything changed as far as I'm aware. Like they don't use the same scenarios and stuff.
Yeah, but like back then, that's what I did, and it's like obviously, right?
Yeah, of course, but they're people who like I'm not better than Rella still. I don't think anybody's better than Rella, right? Even though everybody puts so much time into training, if you watch Rella play, like it's just like completely different, right? And I know
Yeah,
he didn't have access to Kovacs, and he never like, as far as I'm aware, did any sort of special training. It's just like he had this idea. If you go to like one of his videos, he says it's just like about trying to get to your target with the smallest latency time possible, right? And smallest time in between targets. And if you literally just flicks are like so much fast flicks are so much about mentality, you know? It's probably the
yeah,
same with tracking to some extent. I haven't like understood. You could probably just get. There's this good player called Luxtra, right? Who
yeah,
became like very close to the Ninja, and he's like amazing flicks and tracking, right? But he didn't touch aim trainers to get better. He just willed himself into getting it, and it starts to make more sense because when you start thinking about how game sense is, right? You check over
yeah,
your gameplay, you watch better players, and you start thinking about how you could have done it better, right?
yeah,
You don't actually need Voltaic to get better at aiming, or you don't need guide videos to get a better game sense. There might be a few like small tips that you realize sooner because of it, but you're gonna realize them at some point, you know.
yeah,
So I agree with you to some extent, but Kovacs gives confidence, right? Because if you have all of this knowledge and shaky aim, you can't feel as comfortable as if you know you have to learn some stuff, but one part at least feels okay, right?
yeah,
That's why
perhaps.
they
But,
spontaneously play so many games because they just have like extra confidence.
yeah, but here's also the thing, right? If you look at like a game of like HAL 9000 playing CPM, right?
Have you do the DDK Duel Masters one?
Oh yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, High K versus Rocky.
I don't know. I don't think I think watching it without the I don't know. I sometimes
I can't hear anything on my end because of Discord.
yeah, I forgot to change it. But here's the thing. Like in my personal opinion, someone like I don't know, watching duel videos with like commentation over it, like it tells you what they're doing, but it's like sometimes it's much more fun to just think about it.
Yeah, because you like learn to think about it, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't think because there's because I wanted to show specifically when he was playing against NZRO, right? In this specific one, the one that everyone has watched, right? You'll notice that he's played against. He knows how NZRO plays, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. So he plays in such a different way than he normally would. And like this guy, of course, he's played the game for like years on end. So obviously he gets to the point. So you'll notice that obviously his aim is getting probably a lot more shakier, and that's because he like a lot of these people like consider themselves like, oh, I'm probably the best. And shit. Like look at how they'll like aim around and stuff. Like notice how they're not like top tier aimers that a lot of like Kovacs aimers think they are. You know what I mean? How like they're making mistakes like this, right? Even though they're top players, right? Like out playing is that they're not gonna be trying to like go for aiming. They're trying to go for like more movement, because that's just how the game is. Obviously, I'm not gonna say it's like, oh, it's only just CPMA where it's like that, but you'll notice like when I show LG that like the way that they're aiming, it's like they aren't like aiming at all. They're just not playing for aim like that you'd see in other games. You know what I mean? And Quake is a very good example of that. That's what I mean. Even though obviously they're making mistakes, they're probably just like casually dueling. I'm not sure, because this is way too casual. Like, see how their aim is just messing up as well, and like all of this stuff. Like, you want to know why like all this is happening? It's because instead they're using like other game sense like things, such as, okay, I'm gonna be like. Yeah. Okay, hold on, give me a second. All right, there's like a really good example, I think, right here. I think it was like where HAL 9000.
I've been away for like 30 seconds.
Oh
like,
shit.
Yeah. So I was quiet. Stop.
Yeah. Okay.
So I finished what you were saying, how it's more fun to like watch it. So
Yeah, hold on.
Like 20, 15 seconds, and you can start.
No, I was trying to find. No, I was trying to find the portion where I was like showing. It's like, you know how their aim. Like if you go to the portions where like they're LGing each other, right? Right here. Notice how their aim is just so terrible at this point, right?
Alright.
Right. And obviously you could say, well, that's because you know they probably just started. This is like their first game on, right, or something. Like I think that's a pretty fair assumption. But that's like, but the only reason why they're outplaying each other is because in this case, since they know both of each other are like very good, right? Or like they're just playing very safely, right?
Because they can't like afford to take risk in each other's presence.
Yeah, they're playing off of game sense. They're rocket jumping around. They're just like going as fast as I can, because they're trying to just focus on confusing the enemy player.
Like stop them from being able to formulate any sort of...
Just
because
try.
If
just
they
like
do, it'd be too dangerous, right?
Yeah. This is one thing that's like Scrubble hates, but this is literally what they do. It's that you try and W key as fast as possible without even thinking about like true aim. You're just trying to get around as fast as you can, just so you get to the enemy and just like confuse him. And obviously, like there, right?
And it looks like they're playing without stack and stuff, right? But
it's... like at this point, they're not trying to play with it like without stack. They're trying to, but the thing is because they're instead trying to confuse each other, and they're probably really good at doing that. Yeah.
That isn't that the best part about it though? These people have dueled like thousands of times, and like how, right? And they can still confuse each other.
Yeah.
And they can still outdodge each other and stuff, right?
Yeah. It's like look at that. This would have been such an easy mistake for a new player to make. Like two new players dueling each other, and yet they still do it. How? I don't know. I do not know.
Can I tell you something? Like I like thought about beginners and experts the other day, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking about this with another friend. So as a beginner and as an expert, you have like a lot of things in common, which people don't think about a lot.
Yeah.
Beginners and experts think on the same brainwave. Remember that example about dying to a terrible player, like a beginner of the game?
Yes.
Like intermediates are like blinded to some point. They start like thinking of limitations as limitations and not just like you being blind to something, right?
Which is the plateau.
So it's not just a plateau. It's more like it's literally something you can't see. You're blind to it. So when you're a beginner, you apply all of your knowledge at every single time, every single moment. Sorry, when you play the game, you're always thinking of better ways to do things, right? And you never
like look at this
give up on
situation.
something.
All right, I just wanted to like give an example, right? Look at this situation, right? He was at the disadvantage because he did not have any of the good guns. So what he did is, right? He killed him because he just had to play based off of game sense. There is no way he could have aimed in this situation. So he just had to resort to like one of the things like, oh, I know I can just like get him with this, right? I'm gonna confuse him with this. So this is like a very good reason why a lot of people like don't realize that CPM is like one of those. It's not just CPM. You'll see this in like regular Quake as well, where it's just one of those games where sometimes your aim just cannot carry you.
Sometimes you don't even need it to carry it, right?
Yeah. Because you'll see, like these guys have been playing for 20 years on end. These guys are known in the community to be like one of the best, and yet they're still making like mistakes that people that probably have like I don't know, like that are probably new to PC gaming will make in terms of aim. And of course, they're playing on very high sensitivity. They're not trying to like aim. But it's just like one of those things that like people just
they hit their shots, right? That's all that matters.
Yeah, they'll hit like some of the shots because they're not like trying to go for flicks constantly. You'll see them, they're flicking only with like rockets, right? And that they're mostly just like moving with like they're mostly just like moving like doing like aim moving or move aim with LG because
they don't use mouse aim
because they know
consistent.
because they know that their reactions are probably going to be inconsistent. See.
Like what I was saying before about beginners and experts, right? You can, as an expert and a beginner, can have the same thought, right? And the difference between beginners and experts are like experience, you know?
Yeah.
Right? Because when you're expert at something, you're always trying to find a better way to do it, right? When you're a beginner or something, you're always trying to find a better way to do it. But half the things you'll think about are just aren't possible at all, right?
Yeah.
Like when you first start a game, imagine like when maybe I tried thinking about like crouching midair in CS when I learned about b-hopping, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't because I thought I stay in the air for longer, so it'll make it easier to time. But that's just wrong, right? But so it's just like if you think if I thought a bit longer about that, and I tried thinking about how crouching affects my model, something an expert would think about was like if I crouch at the end of my jump, it'll bring my legs up or something, right?
Yeah.
But like those are still like similar lines of thought, and we both failed at some point about like our thinking, but we're very very different in like so it also causes people to misinterpret things, right? Because I could like an intermediate player could watch this and think both of them are scrubs, like actually, right? Because they do things that are similar to beginners, right? I think it's also a mistake to think that beginners are bad players at all, right? Because there's a difference between inexperienced and bad, you know. There's a reason why like
the thing is that a bad player, well, an inexperienced player makes the same mistakes mostly that a bad player makes. And what I mean is that obviously, like, an inexperienced player doesn't have to think about like if I'm thinking about bad, right? If I'm playing like I'm gonna use like Quake again. If I'm playing Quake, right? If I'm a bad player, I might not think about like certain situations where, say, if I'm forced to like play long range, but I'm not good at long range, but I need to switch to long range, right? And I need to switch to short range, right? I need to start getting closer to this guy because this guy just like will probably like beat me in the long range. I'm probably not gonna think about where okay, here's how I can get through to faster to like try and get closer to this guy and maybe out juke him. You're just gonna be staying in like your like a close position. You're just gonna be like you're just gonna be railing him, right? Or the other way around, right? Where both of you guys are like way too close, and because you're not doing well close range, you're not thinking about ways to go like to go farther range because either A, you don't know how to do that, just like how most beginner players are, or B, you're just not doing that because you're not thinking about it, which are most bad players. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Because like it's not because you can know that's an option, but not think about doing it, right? And that's the difference between an expert and but beginners won't know that was an option, but they'll test it anyway, right? And like, it's like how like expert players like pull like they discover new things when they're playing, right? Compared to intermediate players who like copy things they've seen from experts.
Yeah, or also you can say that the thing is that also like new players or intermediate players, what happens is that a lot of them. Here's the thing. In the real world, right? A lot of things just aren't like not a lot of people create like new things, right? Like a lot of glitches that happen in video games are mostly just like things that people just like they probably like for like things like bunny hopping, right?
Yeah.
Somebody just like knew that like okay, I could just keep on jumping, right? Like somebody already had that idea, but then the second that they like changed up a little thing that they did, right? Oh, so if I press D and I move my mouse like left, right? Oh, look, I go a little bit. I change the direction. I go a little bit faster, and then somebody else was like, okay, so I can combine these together, and that's how bunny hopping is made, right? This is the same thing that you can see with like other things, right? You're not going to see new players like you're going to see new players like test out things, but they're not like deeper
They're not
in
gonna
terms of
take it to like. They're not gonna check its
yeah,
application in every single
yeah,
situation, right?
yeah. Like this is the same thing that'll happen like in CS, right? You can teach a new player like a few like smoke things, right? And they'll probably spend in their free time like how to smoke out things, etc. But they're not gonna reach that point where they're gonna figure out like in other maps where to smoke, right? They're not gonna spend that time like learning other different smokes that they could probably use to their advantage.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Also, like because of how little experience you have as a beginner, you take all experience like as much more than you should, right? Like
Well, yeah.
when I first started playing CS, right? It was for the first time playing FPS games too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
first like week or something, right? I played against like DM against bots on Dust 2, right? So as soon
Yeah.
as I went into a real deathmatch, I expected to do extremely well, and
But you didn't.
but because of how like your human brain works, I did do very well, and I got dropped like 40 kills despite not being able to aim. Partly because
Oh,
the people in DM are bad, and partly because like having confidence, like blindly, is something the beginners do much better than like really good
yeah.
players, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the reason like you can die to beginners. But as an intermediate player, right, with an average amount of knowledge and an average amount of skill, I simply can't give myself that confidence, right?
Yeah. Because you're reaching that mental plateau.
Yeah, it's not that. It's like this subconscious self limiting, right?
Yeah. So.
Because you don't you have this experience makes you think that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still recording now. I don't think I